Well, things are getting pretty spicy here in the second week as the post millennial does some actual investigative journalism, something that is rare these days of people that would call themselves journalism. And it would appear that what Zoey has said about fellow video games developer and indie games dev, Alec, starting to look like it might be a little baloney. In fact, many of the things that were said about Alex seem to not hold water by her own words. Now, Diana Davison, someone I'm pretty sure I met in Chicago at a conference, has put out an article saying that the things that Zoe said are now falling apart. And it's interesting, very interesting. And I'm going to link, an actual link to the actual article because, good journalism deserves credit and deserves to be shared. She also has a Twitter handle. It's probably worth following at D2 Davison, Davison. Give her a follow. Now, exclusive, her allegations are falling apart. Now, we all know everything that basically happened. Something was said online, and this indie game developer subsequently lost their job, lost everything they had worked for, felt in the end that they had lost too much and decided to self-check out. A decision that ultimately was their own, but the blame was shared by many. In fact, really, this is another example of the culture of cancellation leading towards somebody, suffering. Again, we don't know. We do know that the video game world, in particular the indie video game development world, is particularly close-knit. And that you don't need any evidence if you say something bad about another video game developer, as we saw in Alex's case. It was just like hashtag believe all women, and that's what they did. This tweet came out, the man's video game was canceled, his job was canceled, the man in and of himself was canceled, and eventually he self-canceled. The post originally started on August 28th, but did not specify when these things took place. So, as the article puts out, a source with access to the locked Twitter account has provided the post-millennial with important history, which sheds light on the developer's time with now gone Alec. So, in August 28th statement, she claims to have been physically confined. Now, this was a big part of what was said. Basically, she had said that, I couldn't leave the house, and he would take the key, and this and that, as well as isolated from the outside world. Tweets, however, reveal a very different story, with her tweeting regularly throughout the period in Winnipeg, sometimes dozens of times a day, communicating with many others and describing her time in the city and documenting many excursions. Well, that's pretty interesting, given I thought that, she was locked in the house and couldn't leave. You see lots of these tweets saying, I went to get fabric for making plushies today, and someone did this. You could see this one. It's a comedy dating game about online dating. So I ended up acting in the second act of a musical randomly today and managed to memorize my lines somehow. Interesting day. Wow, that's interesting for somebody that's being confined to their apartment. Working on hashtag It's Not Okay Cupid in a coffee place that's playing Isley Brothers and Isaac Hayes. Today is in the mood to write romance. Again, several excursions for someone who had been being confined. Now, of course, maybe this was in a period where this wasn't happening. I don't know. We don't know. Ultimately, all that this does, though, is it significantly casts doubt on some of the things that were said. They also had arranged multiple indie game meetups, appropriately named Winnipeg, Windypeg, sorry, in mid-April and May at Urban Forest, where up to 38 other developers were present, many of which had been with them interacting through Twitter. Okay, well, that's interesting for somebody who had been confined to their apartment as well. The couple also appeared as guests on a podcast on April 14th called Indie Function, where both discussed their projects, and the subject shifted into more personal topics such as how they met and their daily lives. 30 minutes into the podcast, She discusses having met him on Twitter, direct messaging him after he first interacted and expressed interest in her projects, specifically noted how he supported the mission of, quote, having more than 5% of women having more than 5% of the industry. She calls her relationship, quote, adorkable, while being encouraged by him to talk about their project. Later in the podcast, Quinn excitedly describes day-to-day life. My life right now is I wake up, I work on a game I care about very passionately, and I pass out from exhaustion. Going on, while discussing indie game developer Phil Fish, a conversation that eerily relates to the present takes place. Quote, and that's one of the reasons you don't really want to be famous, because that's what happens. People basically turn you into a cartoon character. You don't get to be a person anymore. You're a concept. Quote, I'm pretty sure that I'm not well known yet because that hasn't happened to me. And I don't think that I'm in any way where I'd be characterized as one thing or another. Alex says to her statement, everyone is going to get mad and yell about something eventually and then get characterized in that way. Interesting foreshadowing from him, to be honest with you. You know, people are fallible. People make mistakes. People overreact. People get emotional. And I've always said from Jump Street that the things that were said about indie video game developer Alec could have been true. The problem is when you share them out in the public space like that, they're just as likely to not be true, given the questionable motives of the person doing so. I've said many times, yes, of course, I support people getting justice and people treating each other with respect. But when your first act is to share something on social media, I question your motives. I think it's natural. It seems like your motive is revenge. Your motive is to drag somebody. And again, just because that may be your motives, that doesn't necessarily mean what you're saying isn't true. But it just becomes much less interesting to me to take up and support you when you're acting that way. Then also in the public statement, the biggest part was that he had taken control of her then project, It's Not Okay Cupid, the podcast, as well as her regular tweets while in Winnipeg, and after the departure, challenged that assertion. So a well-written way to say, basically, she had claimed that he took over everything and that she didn't have any power, except all these tweets seem to fly in the face of that. And we can see here in April. So this is one email from the hashtag It's Not Okay Cupid with all the choices, possibilities mapped out in one rough draft. Basically, essentially talking frequently about the project and about the things that she's doing on the project. It doesn't seem like somebody who's lost control of their game. Dozens of tweets in the post-millennial's possession demonstrate that she was routinely editing, contributing, and designing the planned game, sometimes with suggestion. Alec provided inspiration or even encouragement. Quote, when a boy game dev and a girl game dev love each other very much, they smash their heads together and a game comes out. Hashtag It's Not Okay Cupid. According to her statement, Alec also delayed purchasing Quinn's ticket home as per their arrangement, effectively trapping Quinn in Winnipeg. Now, this is one of the most ridiculous claims I've heard. I mean, it's not 1950 anymore. There's a million companies out there willing to give just about anybody a credit card. There was originally a claim that this game dev, Alec, had an agreement in place where he would fly her out or she would fly out and then he would pay to fly her back, whatever that was. I don't know. That was the statement. A plane ticket to fly from like Winnipeg to Toronto is nothing. It's a few $100s. Nobody seems to be questioning that. If you're in such a terrible situation, I can go online right now and go to a website and apply for 100 credit cards. And one of them will give me one, and I'll be able to buy my $300 plane ticket. Or maybe I reach out to my parents, or I reach out to a friend, or I reach out to a friend's friend. We're not talking about millions of dollars. We're not even talking about thousands of dollars. We're talking about a few $100 for a plane ticket. But apparently that was enough to leave her in isolation. But again, the statement that who was frightened, asked if she needed help, quote, getting out, and help was accepted to flee. However, 3 tweets sent out between April 24th and April 30th demonstrate that she is being dishonest about the circumstances surrounding the return to Toronto. In fact, they prove she was aware of the plan to leave at least 10 days before the actual departure. In the tweets, she is discussing an hours-long layover in Montreal, asking if any friends wanted to meet up, and announcing a return to Toronto. And here you can see those tweets. Now, again, does that mean that, a buddy didn't help her out with money? No, but it doesn't seem so escaping under the cover of night when you've got at least 10 days planning and all that kind of stuff going on beforehand. On the 28th, she also says that upon the rapid, anxious escape from these circumstances with Alec, with the help of a roommate, the man did not do so much as acknowledge the departure. But on May 4th, 2012, a tweet states that he and she were working hard to crunch on It's Not Okay Cupid just hours before the flight, entirely disproving the claim. Let me be clear about this. Diana, good job, by the way. The claim was that, I had to escape under cover of night and it was all so awful. But here on the day you're leaving, just hours before you're supposed to leave, you tweet, and now I see how hard crunch can be on hashtag It's Not Okay Cupid with Alec before I have to catch a plane in the morning. Too inspired. So that tweet in and of itself also disproves that the statement that she didn't have any control over the game. This is all pretty clear to me. Interestingly, after her return to Toronto, Alec and her exchanged several light-hearted public tweets into the month of May as her work continued on It's Not Okay Cupid. You can see more games need a self-destruct button. That sounds fun as heck. Also saying, reminds me of playing Skate 2 and watching the collision and physics freak out to humorous effects or efforts. And, so the conversation, at least publicly, was cordial. You were working with this person. You had time to leave. It seems like all of this whole victimhood thing is all falling apart. The last tweet shared between the two was sent on May 10th and was a single hi from her. Whether or not he responded is unknown due to the locked status of his account. Statements issued after his self-checkout demonstrate that it was well known that there were concerns about his mental condition, concerns stemming from long before her public accusation surfaced. Steve Benson, his development teammate, issued a statement after the decision to cut ties with him was made, emphasizing that he had a continual history of emotional instability and behavioral problems. Again, look, nobody is questioning that maybe Alec had his issues. And I think the biggest takeaway here, or the biggest target I have here is not just one person. It's the cancel culture in video games and in Hollywood. As we've seen in at least more cases than not, they are thinly supported by evidence and in many cases outright lies, as we've seen with Chris Hardwick, with oh my gosh, Andy Signor, many of the highest profile kind of cancels, Pro Jared, these all ended up just being complete baloney. Now, his sister, Eileen, in her Twitter announcement, also noted that her brother struggled with these issues, something also reiterated by Q in the August 28th statement. While it's indisputably true, as she asserts in the statement, that there's no karmic limit or for these type of things, it's also true that her statements must be given the respect they deserve and thoroughly investigated. In her case, there are undoubtedly significant discrepancies in the statement made on public on August 28th and the history that was made available to the post-millennial for review. Further, her history cannot be neglected when considering the context of these statements. Her ex-partner, Aaron Grangi, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, recently brought attention to extensive discussions between himself and her on Facebook. In these discussions, she mentions being raised by a pathological liar, having brain damage, and seeking vengeance against a game developer she once loved. The new evidence uncovered is not exculpatory. However, it does reveal that ZQ is in no way credible. And I would agree with that. This is a statement that most of us already knew, but this is just an excellent layout. And I'm not, there's definitely more to read here. I want to give people a reason to go to the Post Millennial and read this because I think it's well put together and it paints a pretty good picture of just how ready people are in the video game industry, in the gaming world, to try and cancel. And I mean, the sad thing is, like, there's real people out there that need help, yet this person is like a black hole of goodwill on Twitter. This is somebody that has never put a single video game out in the world worth playing. This is somebody that's never added anything to society, in my opinion. This has been somebody that continues to take thousands of dollars a month to produce nothing via Patreon. This is a person that took $86,000 via Kickstarter to produce nothing, never putting out that game. This is somebody who has been a black hole of humanity's goodwill and cash money every month, yet continues to enjoy the benefit of the doubt. Hopefully this post, and if you enjoyed it, the sharing of this video and the sharing of this original article will help put a chip in that trust in the video game industry and the indie game development community. Many game devs have reached out to me behind the scenes, rightfully afraid to speak out because they know what will happen. But I have not had a single person reach out to me to support these claims. In fact, I've had family, friends, and other people close to Alec that have more so shed more doubt on her stories, but can't share it publicly because they work in indie game development scene. Not surprised. Please, definitely, before you leave this video, leave a like and a comment on it and share it out there far and wide. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon. I sincerely hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, before you leave, make sure you leave a like and drop a comment on it. It's the only way to help the channel grow in today's YouTube environment. Above, you'll find a link to subscribe, and make sure you turn your notifications on, or if you just want to check out another video, there's one of those up there too.